Hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Jim Honeycutt and Mike Foley are American musicians who were in the Connecticut band Repairs during the early 70s. The band's sound covered a wide range of influences from rock to folk, psychedelic, progressive, and country. The lineup was Peter McCann, vocals, guitar, keyboards, Larry Treadwell, vocals, guitar, Jim, guitar, bass, Mike, vocals, bass, Jim's wife, Sukie, vocals, percussion, and Ace Holleran on drums. The band released 3 albums during the early 70s, 1971's Already a Household Word, the self-titled Repairs in 1972, and a live album in 1974. Andrew Loog Oldham, known for his work as manager and producer of the Rolling Stones, would produce all 3 albums. Post Repairs, Jim taught high school for over 38 years. Jim's identical twin cousin is singer-songwriter Walter Egan, who fans may remember from his hit Magnet and Steel. And Mike played in a 4-piece version of Repairs for some years, wrote some songs, and also did some studio work. Well, welcome, guys.
Good to be here.
Thank you for taking time out and to visit.
Thanks for the invitation.
You're very welcome. Well, I always like to ask some early preliminary questions like, do you recall music in the household growing up?
Sure. In my case, we we watched Ed Sullivan, and we saw the Beatles. We saw Elvis. My parents were horrified, and as most parents were. And I grew up with the music of the late 50s and the early 60s.
Okay. How about you, Mike?
Um, so my there was always music in our house. We didn't get a television until I think 56. And my father traveled a lot on business. He'd be gone sometimes for a week at a time. He was a national sales manager for a machinery company. So I think my mom we always had the radio on, and I think she had it on, because she had 2 kids, and she needed to hear adult voices, and the music soothed her. But so there was always music or something from the radio, while the whole time I was awake during the day, unless I was in school.
Okay. Were either one of your parents musically inclined? Either one of you?
No, not in my case, not at all.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
No, no. Okay, well, talk about the first musical instruments you learned to play.
Foles, let me go first.
Yeah.
sure.
So I became interested in folk music early on, back in the 50s, with the Kingston Trio. And I thought the banjo was the most cool instrument in the world. So for one of my birthdays, my father gave me a Vega long neck Pete Seeger model banjo. And I learned to play that. That was my first instrument. And then later on, I switched over to guitar. My cousin Walter and I played together during our early high school days, and probably late elementary school days and early high school days. And then Walter and I sort of went our separate ways. That's another long story, but that was my first musical instrument. And then eventually, in high school, I did get a Ronnie Lee Gibson guitar, electric guitar, which I bought from John Zambetti, interestingly enough. And he regrets selling it to me because he wanted it back later on. But anyway, but that was my first. That was how I got into that path.
Okay, okay. How about you, Mike?
I started in junior high school. They did a musical aptitude testing, and I tested high, so they said, we want you to be in the band. You pick an instrument. So I picked up, I said, well, I always liked the New York Philharmonic. So I said, I like French horn. So we don't have any French horns, but we got this horn. They showed me a baritone horn. It was like bigger. So that was my first instrument. And, when I got to high school, I switched to trombone. But freshman year of high school, I realized that the girls were not attracted to baritone horn players. The guys with the guitars, were doing all right.
Right.
So I asked a guy that I knew how to play guitar in spring of our freshman year, just like a week before the end of school, if he could show me how to play guitar. So he wrote down the finger positions for 5 chords, and he said, "Go ahead and do these, this summer, and that's all you need to know." And in a way, he was right, because they were the basic formations, the E formation, the A formation, the D formation, the G formation, the C.
Yeah.
So and my parents had bought me a $20 Czech guitar, but the action on it was so high that it was really hard to do bar chords. So I found that I wanted to play along to the radio to learn how to play, but I found that it was too hard to do the bar chords. So I didn't have the dexterity to play lead guitar, so I started listening to the bass line.
Okay, that's how that worked. Okay.
And that's how I learned how to play bass. And then I found out the bass players were needed more than guitar players, so I just stuck with it.
Oh, all right. Well, both of you guys, can you recall the first 45 or album that you got?
Oh, look, pregnant pause.
I can remember the first albums I bought.
Uh-huh.
I bought Sgt. Pepper's and the Vanilla Fudge first album.
Oh, the first one, yeah.
Yeah, Ticket to Ride and
Keep me hanging on.
Yeah, keep me hanging on. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Those talk about incredible musicians.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
God, So I learned a lot from that. I used to go. I was a jock in high school, so I used to like come home after practice, and my parents would say, "Go up to your room and do your homework." And I go up and do my homework, and then I would turn the radio on, and I would try to learn the bass part to every song on the radio.
Yeah, yeah.
Me, I was playing Kingston Trio songs, and then I discovered the Weavers, Pete Seeger, and what was considered to be less commercial folk music and more legitimate folk music. I got into all of that sort of stuff.
Okay, okay.
So,
how about Mike? Some other early influences for you?
My parents had records, so they had they had like Christmas music, of course, and they had comedy albums, but they had like there was some big band stuff, and because I was listening to the radio, all through my early years, I liked that everything. In the early '60s, when Leonard Bernstein did the children's. He would do children's afternoon special with the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and they would like break down Peter and the Wolf, and then they would play it. They would show you the oboes, the dock, and that fascinated me, and I really liked loved the sound of a symphony orchestra.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Well, what about the first live concert that you attended, both of you?
Kingston Trio, Fordham University. I was in high school and way out of place, but I was thrilled to be there.
Oh, yeah, right. What about you, Mike?
I can't think offhand.
Okay.
Let me come back to that. I know.
All right. Sure. We can do that. We can do it. Well, talk about music scene around you guys as a teenager.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Queens, New York, which is a suburb of Manhattan. Walter Egan and I spent our weekends in Greenwich Village going to clubs, and I have a funny T-shirt. It says, "I may be old, but I saw all the great bands."
I like that.
And in my case, it's true. Walter and I saw the first tour of the Grateful Dead. We saw the first tour of Jimi Hendrix and the Jimi Hendrix Experience. We saw, we went to clubs, and we also like folk music too. So Eric Anderson, Tim Hardin, Ian and Sylvia, those are real folky type people, but they were great. And so we saw all that sort of stuff growing up in Queens. We would, as I said, spend the weekends in Greenwich Village seeing all these amazing bands.
Right. I reached out to Eric Anderson. Never heard back, but that's somebody I'd really like to talk to. Yeah.
I met him one night. I saw him. We have I live in Fairfield, Connecticut. We have 2 music venues here, and he played in one of them. And after the show was over, I ran into him. He was trying to find out where the train station was. And he was with this woman, I think who was his manager. She was sort of his caretaker. And I showed them to the train station. I told him, I said, I grew up watching you. And I knew actually the names of all of the musicians that used to back him up, one of which was Harvey Brooks, the bass player, Electric Flag. But
Yes.
but turned out he lived in Westport, where my wife and I both, my wife and I, my current wife, I should say, and I both taught for almost 40 years. And I had his stepdaughter in class that I told. It's a very funny story. At graduation, we were processing in with the faculty. You know, there's a faculty walks in during graduation, and I'm walking along. I look at this guy. I said, "You Harvey Brooks?" And he says, "Yeah." I said, "Holy shit!" And the whole audience turned and looked at me. And but anyway, I was a big Harvey Brooks fan. He also played with Peter, what was his name? Peter Harris, I think, was his keyboard player. With Eric Anderson would play, and he was great. It was just, but anyway, I really liked his music growing up. Violets of Dawn, all those great songs he had. I have his CDs, and I actually way back when I had his LPs too. But I'll shut up now and turn it over to you folks.
That's all right. That's all right. Mike?
What was the question? I was so enthralled in
the music scene around you, growing up.
Oh, well, I remember the first concert I ever went to get back to that, was the Springfield Philharmonic Orchestra.
Okay.
And I got blown away because it was so, the music was so beautiful. But the first, like rock concert I went to was when we both attended Fairfield University, Jim and I. In fact, all of us except Jim's, except Sukie, attended Fairfield. And the freshman year they had a concert it was the Strawberry Alarm Clock, the Box Tops, in this order appearing, Buffalo Springfield, and the Beach Boys.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And the Beach Boys were the.
And the Beach Boys came on after about 2.5 hours of everybody else, and the audience after like a set of Buffalo Springfield were like exhausted.
Yeah.
And the Beach Boys commented on it. They said, we understand you guys might be a little bit worn out. It's been happening this whole tour. We're going to go ahead and play anyway.
Right. You're going to have to listen to us anyway.
And like, the Springfield had the classic, like Stills was on one side of the stage and Neil Young was on the other side of the stage, and they would like do dueling solos, and it was amazing.
Right.
That was quite a first concert.
Were you guys in bands prior to Repairs?
I sat in with my cousin's band, the Malibus, a couple of times. It was, by the way, Malibus was Malibooz. They thought that was a cool way of spelling Malibus because they were high school guys. But anyway, I sat in with them a couple of times, and then I used to play banjo with people, way back when. Foles, over to you.
One time at Fairfield, I was probably there was a shortage of bass players on campus. There was one guy, Buzzy Jackson, it was a really great bass player, and then there was me, and then there were a couple other guys. So and one time I was like in a jazz combo. Another band that did Brazil had two female singers up front that did Brazil '66 type music.
Oh yeah.
And then I started hanging around with what eventually became Repair. And I was in a band where all we ever did was practice in one of the practice rooms behind the stage at Fairfield, and we would play Birds and Buffalo Springfield, and we learned all that West Coast LA type music and San Francisco music, but I think we never performed live. But people used to come and listen to us, like learn songs. It was pretty interesting.
Right. Yeah, I used to love that samba, Brazil, 66. And then also I grew up on Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. Yeah. My dad he's got several of their albums. I have them now. But yeah, I grew up on that. I love that south of the border type sound. All right. We'll relate the backstory of band members and prior to Repairs and how the band formed.
Well, the band sort of started with myself and Peter McCann. I played guitar pretty well, and I'm very realistic in my assessment of my guitar skills. I was pretty good at one point, and so Peter connected with me, and he asked me to play backup guitar for him, and we did jobs together, playing here and there, and I would just mic my guitar and play along with him. I would do filling stuff, so to speak. Anyway, that's how it started. And then I think Foles, you entered the picture, I think, at one point. And then we started playing at a local bar in Fairfield at the end of Reef Road. Was it the Nautilus? I guess so. It was probably the Nautilus. And Foles was there. And then occasionally Peter would invite my girlfriend, Sukie, to come up and sing. Now, Sukie had a very, very good and powerful voice. She sang with the Pittsburgh Symphony when she was in high school. And if you went to hear a choral group perform and she was in it, you could hear her. She was that loud. But she had good pitch and she knew how to sing harmony. And so she was well suited for Repairs, what would eventually become Repairs. And then
who penned the name? Who came up with the name Repairs?
I think Peter did.
Okay.
We were looking for stupid names, and it was Peter McCann and the Strung Out Band was one of them for a while, and no, in the Incredibly Strung Out Band. It was
okay.
But anyway, we had some stupid names, but we thought we liked Repairs because it was already a household word.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Jim didn't mention when Larry came in. Larry came in like either just a little bit before I did, or
no, you were already in the band. Larry joined us later on.
Larry did? Okay. Not much later on, because I remember him as almost always being there. And only did maybe one or two gigs as a trio that I recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Larry is an exceptional, in my opinion, an exceptional guitar player. With perfect pitch. So we used to, in Connecticut here on the Merritt Parkway, there was a Sikorsky helicopter went over the Housatonic Bridge, and it was a metal grate bridge. And this was one of the jokes in the band. We would do this all the time. When we hit the grate on the bridge over the Housatonic Bridge, or the Housatonic River, excuse me, we would turn to Larry and we would say, "What note is that?" The humming of the van would produce a musical note, and he would say things like, "It's a B, but it's a little on the flat side." So he had the amazing ability that anything he heard, he could instantly play on the guitar. And what he eventually would do when he would perform was he would sing harmony with his guitar solo. He was that talented. And it was sort of hard for me to be in the band for a while there because he was such a huge talent. But it was fine. I played rhythm guitar. If you know Richie Havens, that I mimicked his rhythm playing, and okay. I was that fast. And okay. If you listen to some of our recordings, you can clearly hear me strumming away. Andrew liked the rhythm. I don't think Ace liked it much because I think sometimes he and I were competing for space.
Okay, all right.
Also, to Jimmy's credit, he's a really good finger picker too. Amazing.
Oh, those are I could play. I learned Travis picking, and both I learned guitar playing, folk guitar playing, and folk banjo playing from Pete Seeger instructional LP records. And so I learned what's called Travis picking, which is a three-finger picking style. And I got good at that. In fact, on one of the albums, Peter allowed me to play a song which I wrote called Travis Picking in the Key of C. And it was a nice little ditty.
Yes, I'm familiar with that one. Well, where all did the band play live early on?
Well, go ahead, Foles.
We played in restaurants. Peter came up with the idea that, well, we always knew we needed money in order to buy better instruments we were really early on in being a band that traveled with its own sound system, and actually had a semi-professional sound system. And it was a real edge for us because we relied on acoustic guitars and vocals a lot, harmony vocals. But we started playing in restaurants because we could get steady work there. And Peter came up with the idea that he would go to restaurants in Westport, which is a fairly wealthy part of Connecticut, which makes it a fairly wealthy part of the United States. And we would play in restaurants on Sunday nights and Monday nights because those are the nights they didn't have a band. and we would just play but like acoustic music in the background, and we'd be out in the bar section of the restaurant, and then we would get a little bit progressively electric as the night went on. And it was a steady job, so it was steady income, and we would split we would got a stipend for playing, and we would split the door and we did that for at two different restaurants for about 2 years, and that was the steady part. And then we would we didn't have a booking agent until after we had a recording contract, so.
Yeah.
We just got hired from our exposure in the restaurants. We got hired to
Right.
play jobs.
Right. I was going to ask you when and how did the band come into the orbit of Rolling Stones producer and manager?
Oh, that's a great story. This is a great story. Foles, you and I will go back and forth on this one.
Great.
We were asked to play at an Earth Day event in Westport on Jessup's Green, which is a big green area with a hill, and they set up a stage there. And I don't remember who else performed. I remember there was some other performers, but the first I remember there was a lot of commotion over the sound system, but I can't remember all the details of that. But we were playing this outdoor event, and as it turns out, the producer of the Rolling Stones happened to come along. And I think he was going to see a movie with somebody. I'm not sure if it was his wife or a friend or what, but he heard the band playing, and the band caught his attention. As I said, the band, when we finally became a trio, the band started singing 3-part harmony, and with Larry's guitar playing, Mike's bass playing. I mean, the band was a really wonderful band live. I give us credit for that, and it caught Andrew's attention, and that's how it started. Foles, you want to throw some info in?
No, that's pretty much it. He came in right, I guess, as we were playing. We were the last group to play because we owned the sound system, and so we went on last, and Ace was drumming with us by then, and Ace went to Villanova, so we would only. He would only be with us in the summertime and stuff. But yeah, he came out and he caught I think most of the set, and he came as we were tearing down. The whole concert was on a flatbed semi trailer that had been parked there, and as we were breaking down the drums and the microphones and stuff like that, he came up and he asked who he could talk to about the band, and we pointed to Peter. And he went up and talked with Peter and handed him his card. And Peter,
did you know who he was? Did you know who he was before he even?
Well, the card said Andrew Loog Oldham. Okay, here's the story. Peter goes, Foles, come here. I said, what? He goes, who was the producer of the Rolling Stones? I said, I don't know, because we never paid attention to who producers were. Nobody did that I knew of. And he said, well, does this name look familiar? He hands me the card and said, Andrew Loog Oldham. I said, I don't know. He said, well, how would we find out? And I said, and I looked across the green and over on the string of buildings where he had come out of, the block of buildings, there was something called a telephone
booth,
a telephone booth.
Right.
So I said, well, let me call my girlfriend, who has been my wife for 52 years. I said, let me call Nancy, because I know she's got some Stones albums. And so I called her and asked her to look on the back, who's the producer. So, she looks, on the back, and she goes, Andrew Loog Oldham. And I got the card in my hand. I go, oh my goodness, the guy's legit.
It is.
Went back to Peter and handed the card and said, that's the guy.
Well, Andrew would sign the band to the Rare Earth label, which was a branch of Motown, and produced the first album.
He produced all 3 albums.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're just talking about the first one right here.
Sure,
but,
of course.
Where was the first album recorded?
Well, we before we met Andrew, we had, I think, made a demo And Peter, before he got involved with repairs, was involved with um, Rick McDonald and some other musicians, and they had recorded in a recording studio in Wallingford, Connecticut, which was then called Synchron. And so Peter was comfortable with Synchron. He knew the place. So when we got involved with Andrew, um, I think Peter suggested to Andrew that he could save a lot of money if they did the recording at Synchron instead of in New York City at the big studios there. So that caught Andrew's attention. And so that's how that began. So we had recorded, I think, one demo of 6 songs, which we have some. I have them. I think you have them twofold somewhere.
Yeah.
Our demo uh, songs, and so we suggested to Andrew that we record there. Foles?
Yeah. Peter, it was a demo, 5 or 6 songs. We'd made the summer before, so that's probably the summer of 69, summer of 70.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right after graduation for us.
It was the first, and Ace recorded with us then. That was really the first time where we got to work a lot with him. And Peter took the card after the gig, and he called Andrew back that evening, and they set up a meeting. And Peter brought the demo and played over to Andrew's house, which was like a half an hour away, and Andrew liked the demo, and Andrew, then Peter had the idea of exactly what Jimmy just said. He could maybe attract Andrew to record us by selling him on the idea that he could do it for a lot less money than if he did it here in Connecticut, which is what happened. And Andrew and the owner of that studio became great friends. They were kind of birds of a feather in a way, and they became great friends. And at the beginning of Andrew's first book, Stoned, I think he recounts a story where he was thinking of it. He was going through an evening where he didn't know whether he wanted to live or not, and he called up the owner of the studio, and the guy talked him down and suggested a place where he could go to detox, which Andrew did. And so they became lifelong friends.
Wow. Well, how was it working with Mr. Oldham?
He was a character. I don't think he was good. From my point of view, this goes way back for me. I thought he was certainly a remarkably talented guy who had a lot of flair and a lot of good taste and made a lot of good suggestions. At one point, he wanted me to do a guitar solo at the end of Lord of the Mountains, I think. And I said, "What should I play?" And he mimicked the sound what he wanted me to play, and I did it. I was able to figure it out pretty close to what he wanted. So I mean, he had a sense of the music, I guess. What he didn't have a sense of, he was sort of a drunk, to be honest with you. He was a guy who did a lot of bad things. I was always amazed that he lived as long as he did. Well, and I think he's still alive. But I liked him very much, and he liked me, and he took me under his wing. So I have really basically good memories about Andrew, other than the fact that very oftentimes in the studio he was a little bit out of sorts.
Okay. Well, the album was released in 71. 14 tracks, all originals except for a cover of Joni Mitchell's Michael from Mountains. I have to say, great harmonizing and production on the album, and it's a really nice album as well. I wanted to mention some of my picks, and if I can get your recollections or memories surrounding the songs, anything like that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Any stories or that you'd like to relate?
Yeah. Foles, let me just go first. I had a favorite song that Peter wrote called Lord of the Mountain. And it was not your typical love song, although
that's on the second
album.
That's on
the second. Yeah, that's on the second album.
Well, you want to talk about the first album?
Yeah, the first album. Yeah.
Okay, go, Foles, you better handle that.
Okay. Well, I want to mention Oh Lonesome Sorrow, nice country flavored track. I like that.
Yeah.
Start off the album.
Well,
Any memories surrounding
Well,
that song?
if you know on that album, if you look at the credits closely, that Peter wrote 9 of the 14 songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to be frank, one of the main attractions for Andrew was in repairs. You like the harmonies, you like the vibe.
Yeah.
He thought Peter had the potential to be a great songwriter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Peter became a great songwriter and was that he was a songwriter in LA and Nashville to the day he died.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
And he wrote hits for other, he wrote country hits and stuff like that. So Old Lonesome Sorrow, and Peter grew up like in a working class neighborhood in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is a lot of people in the country don't know. It's as you can imagine, it's like Newark, New Jersey, or it's an industrial working class town on the coast.
Right.
And he, but that was his idea of I'll write a country song.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a nice start to the album. It is.
Yeah.
Measures, great guitar work on that track.
Yeah.
That's Larry.
Yeah.
I was playing I played background on that song, but Larry handled the lead as he did most of the time, and it was a great song. I like also from the album the Circle Won't Bring Me Around. I
was going to mention that one. Nice gospel flavor on that one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I like the vocals on that one too.
Yes. Yeah.
And probably Paper Goodbye was a decent song.
That's another one, right? That's another one. Nice production on that one with the strings and orchestration. Paper Goodbye.
Yeah, the strings were added in Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah, Andrew mixed and mastered that album in Detroit.
Right. What I forgot to ask you guys, why were you signed to Motown?
Well, Andrew's. Can I handle this, Jim?
Yeah. Go ahead, Foles.
Yeah, Andrew's MO with he had learned. If you read, you like music, so I suggest you read Andrew's book Stoned and then his subsequent novel Two Stone. You learn about like his approach, and unlearn a lot about him. He's an interesting guy. We exchange friendly emails from time to time throughout the year, all these years later. But he had learned and he did this with the Stones. Is you do the publishing, you make a publishing contract, a management contract, and this was the key is you own the masters. So we were never signed. Long way to get to this. We were never signed to Motown at all. We were signed to a company called Andam Productions, which was Andrew Oldham and Danny Crew, the brother of Bob Crew.
Yes, Bob.
The Bob Crew generation. Back in the '60s, and so they owned they owned the 100% of the publishing rights. They had 100% of the management of us, and they had and they owned the masters. So I think, and I've never asked him about this, but I'm pretty sure he must have had some type of a deal with Motown where he had to deliver X number of albums a year, and so that's why he was out looking for talent, and. So that's why we were, and there's a whole story about why it was Rare Earth Records and why Rare Earth existed and stuff like that. That's a whole Motown story.
Okay.
You can look up on your own because it's a big, it's a long, protracted story.
I'll have to read.
And then the next one was Mo West, and that's pretty obvious.
Right.
Because by that time, the president of Motown had moved everything to the West Coast.
Relocated to the West Coast, yes. Well, I want to mention There She Was. Now, I can see a single, this one come out as a single.
That was the only one. I think, Andrew was trying to deliver a single off of that LP, and that's the one he wanted to do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that one as a single. Yeah.
Yep. No, you're right. That was probably had the best chance of being a single. But I don't think there was ever a single released by Rare Earth off of that album.
Okay. And then Walking Down My Road is another one I like.
There's another Peter song.
That's another great tune. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then Celebration.
Celebrate. So I always thought Celebration would be the single.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always, I think that, uh, but it did not obviously get released. But that was always my pick from the first album.
Yeah,
okay.
that has a really that song we used to open with that song a lot. Probably all the time because it has that great guitar fanfare in the beginning.
Yes. I like I don't want to jump ahead, but I like the live version off of the live album, The Celebration, even
Yeah.
better than the studio, better than the studio.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were probably a better live than we were as a recording band.
And one more track from the first album, Bummer World, I like.
Yeah, that was Larry's creation.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. And the kids singing on it, we had rented a house in New Haven that summer
Yeah.
from and those were kids from the neighborhood. We used to play frisbee outside, and a bunch of kids would join us. And Larry wanted to have children singing. I can't understand on the on that on the end of that. And so those were just a bunch of neighborhood kids.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
See, I like hearing those stories like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the album upon release didn't do real well here in the States, but it did fairly well in Europe.
Yeah, I was a Staples High School teacher in Westport, Connecticut, and it's a long story, but basically I connected with a guy who went to Staples High School and wound up in Germany in the music business, and he knew a lot about repairs, and he and I went back and forth for a while, and he told me repairs had a following in Germany. He said there was, and um, our albums were released by a German label called Cuckoo, I think it was. So something.
Yes, the German cook, yeah,
Cook.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and he said that, in fact, I own some of the albums that were released, which is fun for me because the albums are different physically. They use different graphics and stuff like that. But he said the band was popular, and so I guess we had some followers around the world.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me doing these interviews, hearing where your music resonates, parts of the country and parts of the world. It's
When you
really,
contacted us a few days ago, I went online to like sample some of your interviews,
uh-huh.
and I did click a recent interview with Click. I can't forget his last name.
Oh, Click Horning.
Yeah, and in his interview, he talks about how he should have toured the Netherlands
Yes,
because he would have done well. But he never knew about that until later on.
Yes.
It's the same with us in Germany. We had no
Right.
idea.
Right. So a lot of the UK musicians I've talked to, Netherlands, comes up. They would play in Holland and be huge, over there, go down a storm. They would go back to wherever, London, UK, walk down the street, nobody would know them. It's just it's wild hearing those kind of, where you again, where you resonate, and the fans that you pick up, Well, the band's second album, the self-titled Repairs, was recorded on Mo West. Why the switch in labels from Rare Earth to Mo West?
I don't know. I think it was Andrew's decision.
Okay, that was his.
I don't know, and I think it was was Andrew's decision based on the situation that was going on at Motown.
Okay.
Motown might have lost interest in keeping the Rare Earth album there. On Mo West, they had the Four Seasons were on that, and I think Sinatra had a release on Mo West, and there was all kinds of strange things that they were releasing on Mo West at the time, and we were just one of those.
Yeah.
things.
Well, Andrew would be in the producer's chair again. Released in '72. I don't know. I mean, it's a toss-up between the two albums. Sometimes I like this one better, but then I'll go back and say, no, but listen to these tracks on the first album. So they're both really good albums. This one's a little more introspective, I think. The second one.
Yeah. The band had lost a lot of its innocent enthusiasm. We lost a lot of our innocence, so let's put it that way. And the second album was a little bit more serious. Songs like Lord of the Mountain, Confessions, that's Foal's song, which is an interesting song.
Yeah.
Preacher Man, that's another Foley song.
Right. I like Songwriter. Songwriter is the
Yeah.
first track I like off of that. And then you mentioned Preacher. I like the line, "We all ride the same train." I like
Yeah.
off of that one. And I think this album has two of my favorites from the band, though. Time. That may be my
Yes.
favorite. That may be my favorite song.
Yep. It's a beautiful song written by Peter.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And Peter got really introspective. Lord of the Mountains was like from some biblical verse somewhere, and songwriter was like his commentary on his I think, and I don't want to summarize something for him. He's not here to summarize it himself, but I think it was his. I'm pretty sure it was his perspective at that point in time about what it was like being a songwriter in the music industry, based on his experience up to that point. He went on to like really enjoy being a songwriter in the
right.
industry, but at that point he wasn't. He was kind of upset about the way things were working out, I think, and
Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
And Andrew, he did have his substance abuse issues, especially at that time, and he writes about it. Um, but I thought his production on the way he captured those songs is really
Yeah,
accurate. That's
yeah,
really what they sounded like, and that's really what we meant, and that's really was a good. He did a really good job capturing where we were and what we were doing at that time.
right. I agree. And this is a toss-up, either Time or Circus Song. That's another favorite of mine.
Yeah, Larry writes some really amazing songs. He's quite he's a great person and a really just he's as nice a person today as he was the day we met him. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
spoke with him last night, I think, and because his birthday is he's born on Valentine's Day.
Oh, is that
So,
right?
so I called him 2 days late as usual to wish him a happy birthday, and we had a nice chat. He
No,
might be going on, he might be going on the road again.
oh, is that right?
Yeah, but
Who's
I
he
can't
playing?
say
Who's he
any more
playing?
about it.
Who's he playing with, Foles?
I can't. I'd love to tell you, but I'm not allowed to. It
Oh,
might
okay.
not. It might not happen, but he's been contacted and he said yes.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So
Yeah. My wife's born on the 12th, my son on the 17th, and then in between is Valentine's Day. So I always tell people I'm broke that week. I'm broke. Between the three of those, situations. Well, now this isn't one of my favorites on the album, but I wanted something that I heard on this one off of my mind. The guitar lick on that is really close to BTO's "Taking Care of Business" to me, Bachman Turner Overdrive.
yeah,
But if anybody was lifting, "Taking Care of Business" came out later. Okay, the album came out before "Taking Care of Business," so I just want to make that clear. I wasn't insinuating anything here, but it's very. You go back and listen to that song, that guitar lick, that riff on that. I hear "Taking Care of Business"
Huh.
on that. Yeah. So just, to my ears anyway. You mentioned Lord of the Mountain. That's another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Fine and Gentle Lady. That's
uh,
another. Yeah.
that's a sweet song.
It is. It is. I have an affinity for those type of the ballads and mellow tracks. I like those.
Yeah.
Well, the album was not really promoted by Mo West, so it kind of went unnoticed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once
Pretty much.
again, if they listen to it, there was never any single release from it. So that shows how much backing they had behind it. Once again, they were just the record label. Andrew had all the financial interest in us. They had no dog in that fight. So they were just whether they were going to release the album or not, which they did, and then whether they were going to find a single to release or not, and they didn't. So
Unfortunate. Yeah, that story's been echoed throughout the decades and throughout the years for so many artists and bands. Well, the third album was a live recording, again with Andrew producing, recorded in 72 and released in 74 on the German label Kuckuck. Yes. How did that come about? Releasing it on Cook. Do you know the ins and outs?
Well, Andrew had sold, sold's not the right word. Jim, you can jump in here. I'm kind of hogging the time, but
No. Foles, to tell you the truth, I don't know how we wound up on a German label, to be honest with
okay.
you.
Well,
All I know is that we had developed a following over there, and so I guess maybe that company, the German company, wanted to release the album. They felt as though there was some market for it.
Andrew's deal with Motown was only for the U.S. So he found a gentleman named Eckert Rahn, who eventually moved to Tucson years later, and started one of the first new age record companies, I believe, called Celestial Harmonies. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Greg, or not.
That sounds familiar. It does.
Yeah, but anyhow, Eckert had made a deal with Andrew for the right European rights to I'm guessing a folio of music that Andrew had, which we were part of. But Eckert actually lived in Westport for a time, and he would come to see us and knew us and was actually he gave us some funding once we were a quartet, so we could go into the studio and make a new demo of us as a quartet. So that's the connection. Yeah, he owned Cook Records, and that's where that came in.
Okay. Well, Jim, you had the videotape of the live performance and would digitize it and sync it up with the audio.
It's a wild story.
Yeah, tell that story.
Well, here's how it goes. The band lived together in a house in Derby, Connecticut, and we had a lovely house that we lived in. Also living with the band was Jim Higgins, who Peter had performed with in high school in a trio called Peter, Jimmy, and George. Jimmy hung out with us, and he became our sound man. And he was at a point in his life where he was just enjoying himself, I guess you'd say. He wasn't worried about careers or making a whole lot of money. So he lived with us, and he would help us set up our gear, and he would sit out in the audience and mix the band, on the on a Bozak mixer with knobs, as I recall. It had knobs. It did not have faders. Anyway, Jimmy that night that we did the live recording sat in the audience with a high 8 film camera, and he shot film of our performance. Now remember, back in the 70s, these were not video cameras with audio. These were just film cameras. But he shot almost 26 minutes of the show. So for some reason, he had the film processed and put on a 9-inch spool, I think, and it was in a case. And for reasons that I'll never know, it wound up on my bookshelf, which is over there to my left, your right probably, and it was there for 40 years. So my cousin Walter had suggested to me at one point. He says, "Jim, why don't you have some of your dad's home movies digitized?" And so I started to do that, and it went very well. I found this place in New York called Digify, a great place, not cheap, but real pro level stuff. So one day I was looking at I came across Jimmy Higgins' thing, and I said, maybe I should really digitize this and see what I can do with it. So I did. I took it to Digify in New York, spent probably $100, $200, having it made into a QuickTime movie onto. I sent them down 2 hard drives, and they put the same file on both drives. And I brought it back. I started looking at it, and so I started realizing that I could figure out by reading lips and looking at the guitar, our hands on the guitars, what songs that we were doing. So that's how it started. So what I did was I took I had digitized the songs from our live album, and and I had those on my hard drive along with the QuickTime movie of Jimmy Higgins, and it started. I started working on it. It took me about 6 months of really, really hard, painful work, figuring out step by step what songs we were playing and how to sync it. And then, of course, there's a term in video editing, which is, by the way, I was a high school media teacher, so I was a media teacher doing all this stuff. There's something when you try to sync something, you assume that they both run at the same pace. Well, they didn't.
They
So,
didn't.
so the film was running at a different speed than the actual recording. So I had to figure that out. So what would happen was I would start a song in sync, and then within 5 or 6 seconds, you could see that the lips were off and that it was not right. So I had to figure that out. But once I cracked it, the whole thing fell apart. I could take any clip of Jimmy's film and just sync it up with the songs, and that's what I did. And so I did I send you the podcast that I made?
Yes.
I
Yes,
sent you
you
the
did. Yeah.
so you actually got a chance
Yeah.
to see some of that footage, and then we also included some of that footage in the memorial video that Mike Zito and I put together for Peter McCann after he passed away. So I don't know if I sent you that
Yeah.
as well.
Yes, you did. That's a nice video there too.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what I did, and it was quite an achievement. I was very proud of it because it took me a long time to crack it, reading lips, looking at hands on guitar necks, trying to figure out what we were doing at the time, and eventually I did, figured it all out.
Right, right. Yeah, it's synced up. You're right. I mean, when you watch it now,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all right there. I mean, just like it was originally, taped, at the actual concert.
There,
So
there was a song we did that night which didn't make it onto the album. I think it was "Tired of Waiting." And then Foles, you know the story on that. Somehow you got your hands on the the master tape of that and sent it out to Larry.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Was it "Tired of Waiting"?
yeah, it was. And I forgot how we found out that that tape existed. But it existed, and it existed at the studio. Well, it had been Synchron at the time, was now Trod Nozzle.
Right.
The owners of the Trod Nozzle are the descendants of
Doc Cavalier.
the original owner that had become friends with Andrew, who died maybe 20 years ago now. And I forget whether they contacted you because they were thinking of throwing stuff out and wanted to
No,
know.
no, no,
No,
no, no, no. I think somebody got it at a garage sale.
no, that's a different story.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's our original demo was that one.
Oh, okay.
But at any rate, yeah, I contacted Andrew because I'm sure he actually legally owned those tapes. It was a 2-track master.
Yeah.
It was a master of the concert, and there were only like bits and pieces. There were only like 3 songs on it, but "Tired of Waiting" was one of them. And he said, "Yeah, go ahead, use it." So I had Synchron digitize it, and then or Larry, no, Synchron, yeah, and then I sent it to you.
Yeah, and then I found the footage. That was where Ace was doing a lot of in the video that I produced. Ace was doing all sorts of fancy drum work, and Jimmy Higgins stayed on Ace, and
Yeah.
so Ace was going crazy. Basically, he was doing every fancy thing he could because he knew he was on camera.
Yeah, and that had been
yeah,
captured on that tape, on
Yeah,
that
yeah,
audio tape.
yeah. I have to also say I like Sukie's dance moves too. Yeah,
yeah.
right. Well, yeah. Wonderful cover of a wedding song. A
Oh,
song I always loved.
yeah.
Yes.
We actually Peter came when Sukie's sister got married. Uh, Peter performed that song on the altar during
Oh,
the wedding ceremony, which was very nice.
oh yes, that is. That is. And then you guys did a nice rendition of "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes" as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
we the band could sing really well, and we did some crazy stuff with that song. You know, But anyway, yeah, that was one of our favorite songs. Unfortunately, what I didn't realize until now in my old age, when Steve Stills did that song, he used what's called in guitar playing open tuning. So if you just strum the guitar, it's a chord, and that's how he played Sweet Judy Blue Eyes. He recorded the song using open tuning. I did not, which has made it much more difficult to try to do guitar solos and stuff like that. But anyway, it worked out all right.
Right, right. Well, pick up the story. Jim, you would leave the band.
Sure. So well, at the time, Suki and I were married, actually. I don't know if you do that. And we went on tour in Florida. And that was we were on tour in Florida for a month. We played in two different clubs. We played in the Flying Machine and then another club in West Palm Beach. Excuse me, my nose is running, so
Oh,
I'm gonna have to
sure,
wipe
sure.
my nose. But anyway, I'll keep talking. And we were playing in these clubs, and the way it worked was we performed from 8 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning. We were on for an hour, off for an hour, on for an hour, off for an hour. And when we were off, there was another band that took the stage. And these guys were fantastic. They were so here's my analysis. They were older than us, much more experienced, road hardened. They looked like hell. They did not leave a very healthy life. And I'm looking at these guys, and I'm saying to myself, while I'm sitting in the audience listening to them, I said, I'll never be able to play guitar as well as these guys. So that was my epiphany. That was the beginning of the end for me, because I was beginning to realize that I was just really not talented to be in the music business. I was talented enough for a while to be in repairs, and that was a great experience. It was sort of a dream come true type of experience for a young man. And it was also a dream come true for Suki. She loved the band. But after what happened was we had to come home. Ace's father died, and we had to come home. We had to end our stay at the second club a little early, and we drove home. And after we got back, um, one day Peter came to me and said, um, "We really want to go on as a quartet, not as a we are going to basically ask you and Suki to leave the band." I was thrilled because it's not that I loved my time in the band. I had nothing but good memories, although
Yeah,
Suki and I struggled with our marriage
right.
during
Yeah,
that time frame. But the point
right.
though is that
Yeah.
I had to find something else to do, so Suki and I went back to school at Fairfield University, and we both started working in restaurants. And what happened was restaurants paid for our apartment and our college tuition for master's degrees. I don't think Suki ever finished her master's because what happened to her was we were waiting tables, and then she was working at a restaurant in Bridgeport, a club called Barnaby's, great club at its time. And they asked her to manage the place. So she took over management and liked it. And so what happened to her is we got divorced. She realized, I'll spare you the details on that, but it was an amicable divorce. We are still friends to this day and still in touch with one another. She lives in Naples, Florida, owns three restaurants and a liquor store, so she's extremely successful, and has had a good life down there. And I became a school teacher, which for me turned out to be a great move because I met my current wife. She was the Spanish teacher in the classroom next door, and that's how
Oh,
that started. It was a public school teachers are not supposed to fall in love. No hanky panky in schools. And unfortunately, that happened for us. But we got married, and she also was a high school teacher for 40 years as well.
oh, okay. Did she teach you some Spanish?
She taught Spanish for 20 years, and
No,
then
did she teach you? Did you learn some Spanish?
no, I did. I just sit back
Okay.
when we go to Spain. I sit back and enjoy myself, and she handles all the conversations. And then after 20 years of teaching Spanish, she became a guidance counselor.
Oh,
I started off as a social studies teacher, but I had a very interesting experience. I went to a career counselor, and I'm trying to make this fast, but the career counselor said, "You were a musician, right? We've discovered in the late '70s that there's a strong correlation between people with musical skills and people who are good with computers. Have you looked into computers at all?" I said, "No." So my dad was retiring. He says, "You want one more thing before I retire?" I said, "Yeah, get me an Apple computer." And it literally changed my career path. So from the early 1980s until the late 1990s, I was a computer teacher in Westport. And then from from the year roughly the year 2000 until Denise and I retired in 2016, I was a media teacher. I had a classroom like you can't believe. So it was a media classroom. I taught radio, TV, radio, and audio, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, that would be a nice subject to teach. Yes.
Oh yeah, and audio.
Yeah.
Kids say, "What's the course in audio about?" It's about sound. And I
Yeah.
started the class off with Les Paul, and we took it from there. And I taught the kids how to mix in Pro Tools and GarageBand and piece of software that Apple released as part of their Apple as their integrated software program for video editing. Program called Soundtrack. So Soundtrack, GarageBand, and then eventually the kids, I taught them Pro Tools, and we had live recording sessions in my classroom. I had Foles, you'll be impressed with this. I probably told you this before, but we had a 24-track Pro Tools HD recording studio in my classroom.
In the classroom.
In the classroom, and then we also had a radio station that was on 24 hours a day, which I ran.
Yeah.
And we also had a 3-camera industrial TV studio, which I ran as well. We were the head end of Cablevision in Westport. So I had a wonderful career. The kids were banging on the door to take my classes. They all wanted to become, TV commentators and they sports announcers and so on.
Oh, yeah.
Some
I
of
had a
them
great
did.
career. I had a great
Jimmy, some of them did.
Some of them did, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, Mike, you would carry on as a 4-piece in repairs. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So in as a 6-piece, when Andrew signed us, he found a young enthusiastic booking agent named Tony D'Amelio. And just as an aside, Tony D'Amelio and Tony booked us, and Tony would go to all the colleges in New England, and actually into New York State, and I think down in New Jersey. So he would book us to do concerts. And we opened for Aerosmith, and as a 6-piece, we opened once for Aerosmith, and we had a really good night, and they, as far as I know, they said, we don't want them to ever open for us again. But I don't know that for a fact. But I do know that they trashed the room where the craft table was laid out. But at any rate, we opened for a bunch of other acts, Poco and Loggins and Messina, and we opened for Stevie Wonder once in Providence, and so Tony went on. And I just found this out about 15 years ago when I got in touch with him to thank him for keeping us floating,
Yes.
getting us all those great gigs back then. He went to Washington and he booked for years. He was like the #1 guy that would book if you wanted the Secretary of State to speak at your corporate thing.
Yeah.
Tony would book him.
For him, yeah.
Yeah. So he did he moved there and expanded into political speakers, I guess, or speakers in demand, and booked those. And eventually, I think he's retired now. He retired on that business. It was a thriving business. He was really good at it, and still a great guy, still very personable. Tony D'Amelio. The band changed because we became electric. We became pretty much an electric band, and in order to pay for the house and everything, we start instead of like just relying on college concerts and stuff like that. And he really couldn't book us anymore because we weren't that band. So he would be delivering a band that wasn't the same because Sukie wasn't up front and Jimmy wasn't there, and we couldn't do all the acoustic music we'd done before, which is by design. That's what we wanted to do. And so we played a lot of bars.
Okay.
And became pretty good at that. And but we got to the point where we realized that getting back to Eckert, we needed some money to go and do a demo, a new demo, so that we could hand it to people, as we did with our original demo. That Andrew saw the potential because he saw how good the songwriting was. So we demoed 8 songs, and at Synchron in 3 days, and and then we decided and Peter started trying to take him down to the city, into New York City, because we're right in Connecticut, and the music industry, the only thing left in New York City of the music companies at that point were the lawyers and the accountants. Everybody else had moved to L.A.
Okay.
in 70 over
Yeah.
73 and 74.
Yeah.
All the A&R guys and that whole side of the business, the songwriting, the publishing, that was all in LA now. So we realized we had to go to LA. So we sent Jimmy Higgins out to LA, and another guy who was we thought might be our road manager, a guy named Mike Kenny from Fairfield. And they went out to LA to find us a house, and we found a 5-bedroom house in Glendale. We moved the whole operation to Glendale. Got there in September, and as I said before, I'll shorten this up, but we found out in LA that they don't pay you to play the club. You pay them to play the club. So we needed money, so we went down to Santa Monica Boulevard, and we got a booking agent. I was going to say his name, but I better not. And he used to drive throughout the West, from like Denver West, and he would go to the top club in every city, and he would say, I'm so and so from L.A. And he had like the open silk shirt and the giant medallion, he drove a big golden Thunderbird. And he would book LA bands into the top club in all the major cities on the West Coast. So we did that. He booked us for a 7 or 8 week tour, and it was after that tour when that tour took us through November, December, and we played Billings, Montana, before Christmas. Then everybody flew from Billings except me and Jimmy Higgins, the sound guy. They all flew back to Connecticut, and we took a Greyhound bus from Billings to L.A. We spent Christmas in L.A. with Jimmy, my wife Nancy, and myself. And when they came back, that's when we had one more gig to do in Great Falls, Montana. So we had to. They came back to Billings, and we took the Greyhound bus back up to Billings. We got back in the van, and we drove to Great Falls, Montana, and we played between Christmas and New Year's in Great Falls, Montana. But when we got back to LA, Ace said, I've been contacted by a band in LA, in Bridgeport, and I want to go back and play with them. And so that was the end of the quartet.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
All right.
But we had the demo.
Yeah.
And the demo, there were only ever like 3 copies of the stereo master tape, 3 or 4 that Peter had, because at that time there were still not cassettes. This is like 74, 75. So you would leave a reel-to-reel tape, as a demo. That got lost. Those got lost. Peter supposedly had somebody, but after he moved to Nashville, he never knew where it was, and so as far as he was concerned, it was lost. Larry gets an email. Larry has a LarryTreadwell.com, and somebody from Baltimore calls him and says, I collect, he's kind of like you, he collects, obscure music, and he goes, I was at a tag sale, and I bid on a box of tapes and LPs, and I've got this reel-to-reel, and I opened it up, and it has, your name and Mike Foley, and because it says Larry Treadwell guitar, Peter McCann, guitar, piano, keyboards, vocals. And he said, and I got this, and I was wondering, is this worth anything? Do you guys want it? And Larry said, yeah, I'll give you, I'd love to have it. What do you want for it? And the guy goes, I don't know. He goes, is it valuable? And Larry says, no, but it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And the guy said, well, I'll just send it to you. There's a policeman from Baltimore, and he sends it, and it's the it's the 8 songs that we recorded as our demo.
Is your demo? Wow, I showed up there.
Yeah. And how it wound up in Baltimore,
Right.
who knows?
Right, right. Wow. Is there any interest from anybody or any thoughts about releasing that, remastering the demos or anything? Anything?
Yeah, we could send you a version of it.
I mean, from some label, reputable label
We've
for.
not, I don't think anybody's contacted. Larry digitized it,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
he and his daughter did some artwork on it, and they did a CD of it back maybe in the early 2000s. And
Okay.
they would pretty much just, send them to friends and people who would want to know
Okay.
about
Well,
it.
maybe somebody, some label will be watching this.
Maybe
Head of a
there's good
label.
songs. Actually, 2 of the songs on it were on Peter's first LP for
Oh,
um, when he released his single LP, his first one.
okay. Okay. Wow. All right. All right. So those got a little bit of mileage there. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Peter, I mean, do you want to make love and then right time of the night? I mean, two,
yeah,
two, two cracking songs, big hits for him, right?
Yeah.
In
yeah.
77. Yeah.
You
Wow.
know, I'm often asked when I tell people about the band, I tell them that Repairs was a great band. We had a lot of competency in all different areas. Vocals were great. Larry's guitar playing was phenomenal. The rhythm section was solid. There was a lot of great things there. So they say, well, why didn't the band make it? I said, because to be honest with you, from my point of view, it's just that Peter McCann hadn't learned to write hit songs yet. We had some great songs. We had some good songs, but these were not songs that were going to make it in a commercial space. So I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened. The eventually Peter McCann became a very successful songwriter. He has a wonderful Christmas album. Um, there's the title of the album is "What Christmas Really Means" by Peter McCann. You can buy it on Amazon, and it's one great song after another. And Pauls, I'm not sure if you I think maybe you're the one who told me this story, but you could jump in if you want to. But Peter wrote every Christmas a Christmas song. And for like 10 or 12 years, he wrote all these great Christmas songs. And they sat, and I guess so one day, the guy who he's working for said, let's release it as an album. And he did. And it's a wonderful Christmas album. I have Peter's other albums as well, but
Yeah.
they're good. There's some good stuff on it. I have all of his stuff, but my wife who really loves Peter's Christmas album. We play it at Christmas time all the time. So
Yeah. I'd just like to add to that 2 of the songs, uh, Christmas songs, were released by Kenny Rogers on his first Christmas album that was from the 90s, I think. And was the man who owned the inn was
yeah,
one.
that is a great tune.
Yeah,
Here's
and
to the
another
man.
Christmas song. And when Peter died, um, you want when I in my um, I don't know, I don't want to say sorrow because I kind of to celebrate his life, I wanted to listen to some of his music. So I went online and because I always liked those cuts that Kenny Rogers did. He did a great job, Kenny Rogers. And I went in and I did the man who ran the inn. I searched that and I got it. And the thing that struck me, I listened to it and it's beautiful. But then I started reading the comments by the people, you know, who, like all people, they think Kenny Rogers wrote it. They call it Kenny Rogers song. But the comments on like what it meant, what those songs meant to them,
Yeah.
in their childhoods growing up, and how their parents would put that album on every Christmas, and how all their Christmases were filled with that music. And I thought,
Yeah.
good job, Petey.
Yeah,
Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Ex-
Pete became a great songwriter,
yeah.
and his Pete became a great songwriter, and that was frankly, why Repairs never made it. It had Peter, I was sitting, my wife and I were having breakfast this morning, and I was just talking about the fact that I had a Zoom meeting today with you guys. And we started talking. She says, what would have happened if Peter McCann became a great songwriter while he was in the band? I said, God knows what would have happened. We may have stayed together longer. The band was solid in so many different ways. Maybe Ace and I would have worked out our differences in terms of the fact that sometimes we clash rhythmically, but if the money's coming in, it's hard to complain too.
That's right.
I also think, Jimmy, to be frank, I also think we really didn't have there's two things. We really didn't have a front man. Sukie, was a standing vocalist, but she really wasn't
right
the lead vocalist.
Right. There was no
really,
right.
We didn't
have no Mick Jagger in the band.
Yeah, and you need that.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice. Again, thank you for sending me that tribute video too for Peter. Yeah, that was really well done. Well done.
Yeah.
So, well, I want to thank you guys again for your time and for sharing your memories. And like I like to say, going back in that time machine with me. It's always.
Do we have time for one more story?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is in L.A., and we're in that house that Jimmy Higgins had found, and we're all living there. Jimmy's living there, Larry's living there, me and my wife are living there, Peter and his first wife are living there. And Peter does what Peter does. He takes a demo and he starts going knocking on doors, because he was brought up in a tough part of Bridgeport, and you made your own way. And
yes.
So he goes to the various publishing companies because he wants a song. He's going for a songwriter deal, and he comes back and after like maybe say 2-3 weeks, and he goes, "Yeah, was it ABC? I'm watering the lawn out front with a hose." And he says, "I said, how'd it go?" And he goes, "I was at ABC, and." Publishing, and he played his songs from our eight song demo that we had done before we moved out there, and two songs, and he also played a couple of songs that he had written once we'd broken up. We had converted a single car garage into we had soundproofed it so you could go out there and practice and rehearse. So he had gone out there and he would write a song on the piano. And then he would bring Larry and me in, and we at that point, Larry always learned a song like that, and at that point I could learn a song first, second time through, and we would go out and we record these singer-songwriter demos, but he had a lead guitar and a bass. So he had taken that, and the head of he got to talk to the top guy at the publishing company, because when you drop the Andrew Loog Oldham name.
Yes.
It lands on the floor pretty hard.
Right.
And so he got it, and the guy said, well, I like this song, but if you could, but I don't like, it needs a bridge, and I like this song, but I really don't like that verse, or I really think you're kind of losing your way. And so Peter comes back. So he said, I think he likes my stuff, but he had some comments. So Peter goes, and the next morning, he calls me and Larry, and he says, "Come on, could you guys come out in the garage?" He said, "I want to I've redone these songs, and I want to do a new demo of them." So we do, and he takes, and then the next day, so that's just 2 days after the guy asked him to make some changes, he walks into the guy's room and hands him a reel-to-reel tape with the changes he wanted, so he comes back, and I'm watering the lawn. He goes, I said, "So how'd that go?" And he goes, "Well, the guy," he says, he's offered me a job. As a songwriter. Yeah. And I said, "How much is he how much are they going to pay you?" And he said, $125 a week. And I said, "Tell him no way. Tell him you can't live, Peter. You can't live on $125 a week. Tell him no way. Tell him you need $250." And he said, "Okay." So he goes the next morning, and he comes back, and I said, "So what did he say?" And he said, "Well." I said, "What happened?" He said, "I got the job." And I said, "Oh, you got the 250?" He said, "No, I'm doing 425."
So he stayed with
He never took my advice.
the.
It's one of the worst pieces of advice. And then, like 2 years later, he writes
Yeah.
"Right Time of the Night."
Right time of the
Yeah,
yeah. Right,
yeah.
right.
And probably within 12 months, he's written "Right Time of the Night" and "Do You Want to Make Love."
Yes, yes.
So he was, we were, as Jimmy says, he
You're
was close to being,
yeah, yeah. It's all about timing, isn't it?
yeah.
And
And
yeah,
I think being in that songwriting staff at the time, Fagan and Beckert had left a year before. David Loggins, he was filling David Loggins' slot. David Loggins was leaving.
right.
I forget whether Messina had written in at that place. They had had a really great run of songwriters, and
Yes,
and they were just filling a slot for somebody who had left with Peter. So that
yeah,
was a great place to go to school to learn
right,
to write a hit, and I
right.
think that influenced him a lot.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
So
Wow,
that's the end of that story.
yeah, well, that's a nice story.
Or as Forrest Gump says, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. Life is a box of chocolate. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, thank you guys again so much for your time and again for sharing. And I'll send you both a copy of this probably this time next week, give or take a day or two. And
Sure.
then you can post it wherever you'd like to, and it'll also be on my channel
Yeah.
as well.
Can
So,
we,
Okay.
yeah.
are we done or can I I give you a couple of things I'd like to say to you?
Oh, okay, sure. Go ahead. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I so I went online, to see, so because I thought, if you want to, it would be great to talk to Larry.
Okay. Okay.
He's a really nice guy, a sweet guy, and he's had quite a career in
Right.
LA. He's been a working musician in LA for over 50 years.
Right.
And he's in the pit band at the Groundlings, the comedy troupe in LA with all these famous Saturday Night Live people have come from. And he's got quite a story to tell, and I think you might be interested in.
Okay.
If you just Google his name, he'll be the first thing that comes up.
Okay. He has his own website. Yeah.
He's got everything,
Okay.
Instagram,
Okay. Yeah.
the
All
whole
right.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I just went to like treadwell.com, and I entered that in, and then
Oh,
everything came up. The whole page is just different places where you can, learn about Larry or talk to Larry. But he's very accessible, and he's a really great guy.
all
Uh,
right. I will. I will. I will
and
do.
and for your own, if you're curious about Peter at all, you should you could Google him, and
Yeah.
because there's the Wikipedia is pretty good, and
Yes.
and well, we didn't go into, he did quite a lot of, he did some great work for songwriters in general as an activist with the Nashville Songwriters Association International. They lobbied when the copyright laws were up for renewal in I forget when, like 10 years ago.
Oh,
They,
okay.
they lobbied Congress hard. And Peter was a political science major in college, and he loved that stuff.
Oh, yes, he would.
He
He would.
he also co-wrote songs with one of the senators from Utah, Earl Hatch.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Hatch has a couple of albums of songs that he wrote or co-wrote with Peter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Peter's, years after repairs, in LA and in Nashville, it might prove to be interesting reading for you if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, I will do that as well. I will do
Yeah.
that. Well, I'll reach out to Larry and thank you for that. Thank you for yes, because I'm always open to new suggestions and other
Yeah.
artists as well.
Yeah,
So
we broke up in '76, and Larry's been out there the whole time, and he's been a working musician the whole time. So I'm sure
so
he's I'm sure he's full of story. I know
yeah,
he's
I
full
was
of
going to say
stories.
he'll have some good anecdotes
Yeah.
too. Yeah. All right. Well, I would shake your hands. Well, let me ask you real quick. What happened to your wrist? Your left wrist?
We had a snowstorm back here, a pretty big snowstorm. It's been pretty cold here since, and I was up helping a neighbor shovel out their yard, and after sun went down, I was walking down the hill to go back to my house, and I hit a patch of what had been snow when I walked up. It was
Yeah.
ice when I walked down, and I
Oh,
did the classic Keystone Cops, where the legs fly out and you land on your back, and I fractured a small bone in my wrist.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Well, hope it heals up nicely.
yeah. I got 4 more weeks wearing this, and then
Okay. I was going to say either that you hurt yourself or you're a professional bowler, you know.
yeah, right.
You know that thing they wear?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, Jim and Mike, thanks again. I appreciate it and I've enjoyed it. Been very enjoyable hearing your stories.
Well, thank you. Thank you for reaching out to us.
Okay.
Good. It was a lot of fun. Thanks so much. You should also consider another thing you might want to, another person you might want to include in your interview programs is my cousin Walter Egan.
Oh, yes.
You know,
I might have reached out to him. Put in a good word for me if you would.
sure. You want me to? I'll send you his contact info.
Okay, yes, do that. Because I'm thinking I might have. I can't remember for sure, but I meant to if I didn't. Yeah.
He's always very happy to do these sort of things. I mean, my cousin Walter, unlike me, when I became a school teacher, I was stupid. I didn't never thought about retirement or medical insurance, and I have all that stuff. Walter has lived. He's 77 years old, and he's still working as a substitute teacher when he's not on the road. He's doing a lot of yacht rock stuff these days, but he's always he's looking for the next big break. So he'll be I think, very happy to talk to you.
Okay, well, thank you again. I'll do that. I'll reach out to him. Thanks
And
for
one thing on Ace. Ace just has a paperback on Amazon that's for sale called 88, Ace
88.
Holleran.
Oh, okay, okay.
And he writes, it's 88 short stories that are 88 words long.
Oh, okay.
And it's a thing he started doing on Facebook. He has about 400 people who follow him on Facebook. And he also has a thing that he posts there, which are longer short stories called Curbside something.
Confidential. Curbside confidential.
Confidential. Okay.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's a pretty good writer. He graduated with honors from Villanova.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, well, smart guy. Yeah.
Everybody in that band was smart except for the bass players.
Oh, don't say that. All right. All right. Thanks again, and all the best to both of you. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
The best to you.
Foles, I'll be in touch. Okay.
Okay, Jim.
You take care.
Right.
Thanks a lot for helping out.
Yeah, let's get together soon, Jimmy.
We will. Okay. Bye-bye.